Hey everybody, Josh Flores here with another supermodel text to use with your students in the classroom. This one is from A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles, and truth be told, it's one of those books that you have lying around that you never finish. Like, I haven't finished this, so I recently picked it back up. Look how far I was in it too. I was that far in it, had this much to go, and I just never finished it. I've had it around for a while. And it's not like it's a bad book. I loved it. Like, it is really good. Just stuff happens, and then another book came out, and that just sort of like, I went on a rabbit trail of reading other books. And so I picked this back up recently, and I'm glad I did, because there's a passage in here that I felt, ooh, this is perfect to use in a lesson plan with students and really showcase if you're into using modeled text with kids. And I like this one in particular because it's hilarious. So if you're looking for good model text, go check out A Gentleman in Moscow. It's definitely available in paperback now, which is nice. I have the hardback version, so page numbers may vary, but the excerpt I'm using starts at the beginning of book 4 of the book. And if you don't know, a little background info, and this is a little spoiler alert warning. It's about a gentleman who, for whatever reason, I'll let you find out, he basically lives in a hotel. So that's sort of the premise and setting that you might need to give your students to understand what's going on, is that the setting takes place in not only in the past, but it is in a hotel, a very nice, fancy hotel, where he has been told by law he can never leave. This is his sentence, essentially, that he has to live at this hotel that's very fancy. So this chapter, it occurs in 1950, and it is called Adagio Andante Allegro. And if you do Teepe Caste, the Teepe Caste strategy with students, then this is ideal, because you can actually have them go and look up what Adagio Andante Allegro means and talk about it. So there's a little bitty mini research to do with your Teepe Caste. Remember, Teepe Caste is title, paraphrase, connotation, attitude. I always forget the S. Shifts. So shifts, syntax, shift or syntax. Everybody uses it differently. And then title again, and then theme of the excerpt you're reading. So based on the title, students can discuss what they think this chapter is about. And things to look out for are, of course, lit devices as we read, especially idioms. If you haven't taught them idioms is going to be a big part of this. And here's the tricky thing about this book. It is probably not written for young adults, so it's higher vocabulary, very, very big on syntax and diction. There's just high. It's really good for helping test their stamina in reading, but I think it's also perfect for those reading passages in SAT, ACT, because those are usually pretty dense with vocabulary. So this is good practice for that as well. And vocab in general, it's a good one to read and pick up some new vocab words. So those are, I guess, my objectives as we read this together. But it's also, of course, with every text, is to pick up the author's style and categorize that. So in this one, I want them to find the humor in the text and then come up with a name and discuss how they might use this narrative technique in their own writing, whether it be fiction or nonfiction, because I could see how this technique that we're going to be demonstrating in here could be used in nonfiction writing as well. So I'm going to start. And of course, if you have the luxury of writing in your text like I do, and you want your students to write in the text, number the paragraphs, and we're going to read all the way to, there's a break on page 323. Remember, I have the hardback copy, so your page numbers may vary, but it starts on page 321, but I would just go to look for book 4. Adagio Andante Allegro. In the blink of an eye, there's a lit device right there. That was how on the 21st of June, Count Alexander Rostov, the main character, summed up his daughter's journey from 13 to 17, when Vasily, he's one of the employees at the hotel, Vasily, remarked on how much she'd grown. So already the setting, you might have to decipher this a little bit for the kids. Like you want to do the I do, we do, you do strategy. And so you're going to read this out loud to them to kind of get that set up so they know what the setting is of the story. So we have a lit device right out the gate, and in the blink of an eye, idiom, and we have two characters, and they're having a discussion about this man's daughter on her journey from turning 13 to 17. And our characters are Count Alexander Rostov and Vasily. So as you're taking notes, you're going to want to take notes on that. Now, I'll be honest with you, I would probably skip, or you can read very quickly the next few paragraphs. It's very dense, where we have Count Alexander Rostov just waxing on, and you get the point that he talks too much, and Vasily is just trying to get some work done. At least this is my interpretation of it. You and your students may have different interpretations, which is okay. But he's just trying to get some work done, and this Count just keeps talking and going on and on and on. We've all known those type of people. So I would pick it back up on the next page at paragraph 7, where the Count says, "When you reach our age, Vasily, it all goes by so quickly. Whole seasons seem to pass without leaving the slightest mark on our memory." "How true," agreed the concierge, as he sorted through an allotment of tickets. "But surely there is a comfort to be taken from that," continued the Count. "For even as the weeks began racing by in a blur for us, they are making the greatest of impressions upon our children. When one turns 17 and begins to experience that first period of real independence, one's senses are so alert, one's sentiments so finely attuned, that every conversation, every look, every laugh may be writ indelibly upon one's memory. And the friends that one happens to make in those impressionable years, one will meet them forever after with a welling of affection." So that's funny that the Count is just trying to be really insightful about how youth, everything is exciting in youth, right? And he's trying to be almost philosophical about it and respectful for it. "Perhaps it is a matter of celestial balance," he reflected, "a sort of cosmic equilibrium. Perhaps the aggregate experience of time is a constant, and thus for our children to establish such vivid impressions of this particular June, we must relinquish our claim upon it." "So that they might remember, we must forget," Vasily summed up. I always think that's really funny right there, so to me that's funny. The Count went on and on for paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, and Vasily, being the excellent listener that he is, because he's a concierge, and that's a very important skill when you're having to deal with wealthy people who are all about themselves, he just sums it up in one nice, neat sentence. "Exactly," said the Count. "So that they might remember, we must forget. But should we take umbrage at that fact? Should we feel shortchanged by the notion that their experiences for the moment may be richer than ours? I think not." So essentially he's saying, should we be jealous of people younger than us and their youth and their excitement of being young? He says no. Let's find out why. "For it is hardly our purpose at this late stage to log a new portfolio of lasting memories. Rather, we should be dedicating ourselves to ensuring that they taste freely from experience, and we must do so without trepidation. Rather than tucking in blankets and buttoning up coats, we must have faith in them to tuck and button on their own, and if they fumble with their newfound liberty, we must remain composed, generous, judicious. We must encourage them to venture out from under our watchful gaze, and then sigh with pride when they pass at last through the revolving door of life." This is the important paragraph. I put like a star next to it. This is probably the most important paragraph in this section, so take note of it. This is where you want to spend time summing up what is he trying to say, essentially, and have students try to make their own guess, turn and talk. They can turn and talk to each other, try to make their own guesses, summing up what is the actual message here. Be like Vasily and try to sum it up very succinctly. But he's essentially saying, we should push them to be more independent. We should push and watch and try not to interfere when our kids are trying to be independent and liberated. But we should encourage that. Here comes the really funny part. Like, to me, this whole thing is hilarious, but here comes the really funny part. So, as if to illustrate, the Count gestured generously and judiciously toward the hotel's entrance while giving an exemplary sigh. Then he tapped the concierge's desk. By the way, do you happen to know where she is? Vasily looked up from his tickets. Miss Sophia, that's his daughter. Yes, she's in the ballroom with Victor, I believe. Ah, she must be helping him polish the floors for an upcoming banquet. No, not Victor Ivanovic. Victor Stepanovic. Victor Stepanovic? Yes, Victor Stepanovic. Skadoskevi. Sorry, there's a lot of hard names to pronounce. The conductor of the orchestra at the Piazza. Break. So I love that he repeated the name as if a little bit taken back, like, that's not the Victor I thought she should be hanging out with. She's with a different Victor. Why is my daughter with this other Victor? I didn't even know where she was. See what happens next. This might be a good part to have students guess what's going to happen next. And on this next part, I have it marked to read at least to paragraph 23 to find the humor in it. Close read that. If in part the Count had been trying to express to Vasily how in our golden years a passage of time can be so fleet and leave so little an impression upon our memory that it is almost as if it never occurred, well then, here was the perfect example. Got this running gag about memory and in the blink of an eye. So that's why that was important. It started with in the blink of an eye, and we keep finding different examples of that idiom in the blink of an eye. For the 3 minutes it took the Count to travel from a delightful conversation at the concierge's desk to the ballroom, where he had grabbed the scoundrel by the lapels, had also passed in the blink of an eye. Why, it had passed so quickly that the Count did not remember knocking the luggage from Grisha's grip as he marched down the hall, nor did he remember throwing open the door and shouting, "Aha!" nor yanking the would-be Casanova up off the love seat where he had intertwined his fingers with Sophia's. That's a good vocab word actually to mark on there. Casanova. Should have students look up what's a Casanova, what does that mean, and what are some other examples in literature of a Casanova, and of course Casanovas in other forms of media, but no bonus points for that. No, the Count did not remember any of it, but to ensure a celestial balance and the equilibrium of the cosmos, this mustachioed scoundrel in the evening clothes was sure to remember every single second for the rest of his life. Your Excellency, he implored as he dangled in the air, there has been a terrible misunderstanding. Looking up at the startled face above his fist, the Count confirmed that there had been no misunderstanding. It was definitely the very same fellow who waved his baton so blithely on the bandstand at the Piazza, and though he apparently knew how to produce an honorific in a timely fashion, he was clearly as villainous a viper as had ever slithered from the underbrush of Eden. Another good lit device to look up. It's an illusion, I believe. I will let you finish off what happens and see if he was really guilty of such. But that is another good model text to analyze with students and look at the humor. Talk about what is the conflict, and is the conflict, how the conflict shifts. I think that's the important part. Moving forward, I will not read the rest of it because I don't want to spoil anymore. But as you move forward, how does the conflict shift? How does it start at the beginning, where he's waxing on about not being too overbearing on his daughter's independence, and then how quickly that conflict shifts in his mind, and then how does it end in this little exchange. I hope you enjoy that, and again, Immortals, a gentleman in Moscow. So, thanks for watching. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of your students, and take care of each other. And Stark says bye.
Bye.
Did you think that was funny?
I thought that was funny, but I don't understand any of it that you read. All I understand is names in that book.
Well, I guess I'll have to explain it to you when you're older, because I definitely do not want you to be caught giving piano lessons to someone's daughter who has an overprotective dad.
Why would I do that? Oh my God.
There's many reasons why you may do that. There's you might do that because you might want to try and smooch on her. Love you.